Welcome to my free series of leadership and ritual facilitation videos. You can donate to help me offer more of these classes and write on these topics. There's more information in the video details below. To the second part of your question, which is how do you coach folks? I just wrote a series of articles on feedback, and so I won't cover the entire scope of the articles, but one of them was on doing a ritual feedback session. Highly recommend this. Highly, highly, highly recommend this. Never do it right after your ritual, but maybe like a day after, or in the week after if you need to schedule a separate meeting. Schedule your ritual team to, part of taking ritual roles is you commit to coming to the ritual planning meeting and you commit to coming to the ritual feedback session. And the way I run the feedback sessions are I do one round of what went really well, and I have one round of what didn't go so well, and then we look at the most core issues from what didn't go so well, and then we do brainstorming on solutions. I try and get people to phrase things in terms of what went wrong or what didn't go well versus in terms of solution. And here's an example. This is an example I use in the article. People will often say, like this was at a ritual that I helped put on in Chicago years and years and years ago. The what didn't go so well was phrased as, well, we really need to fix that doorbell. The doorbell kept going off. So it was a venue we had rented, and it has a doorbell, and so that then the questions go like, well, did we have a sign up to not ring the doorbell? Yeah, we had a sign up, and people were ringing it. So we had rented this venue, but there's a doorbell, and people kept ringing it, and it was really annoying sound, and it happened a couple times during the ritual, which is really disruptive. Going back to disruptions, so by phrasing it as a solution, we need to fix that doorbell, you're not actually focusing on what the problem is, because in the article I go into, there were all sorts of other problems with this venue. It smelled like cigarette smoke. We had to clean the kitchen. There's all sorts of stuff. So by framing the problem instead of diving into solution, we were able to really look at what the real problem was, is that we needed a better venue. We didn't need to fix the doorbell. We needed a better venue. So that's why you don't want to phrase things in terms of solution. And that is like some people automatically phrase things in terms of solution, but then you're sometimes focusing on the wrong problem. We could have focused on the freaking doorbell for, a half an hour, and it would have killed any discussion of the larger issues that we actually needed to discuss together. So that's a feedback method that I use, and it's really useful. But what I will say is that if I have very specific ritual feedback to offer to somebody, I try and offer that privately first. My most common feedback that I offer to people is, I couldn't hear you. It doesn't matter how poetic their liturgy is if I can't hear them. And so because that's so often the feedback, it's let's practice on projecting our voices. Let's do that. So that's really common. But try and get as concrete as you can when you're offering feedback. When it's really vague, it's hard to figure out what to do with that. Like I'm trying to think of vague feedback would include, sometimes after a ritual, from the same ritual, I'll hear, oh, the energy was really great tonight. And then from other people, I'll hear, oh, the energy really sucked tonight. And okay, what do I do with that? I can't really do a whole lot with that, because I don't know what about the energy sucked for them. But if they say, oh, I was standing, kind of in the back, and I had a hard time hearing people. Oh, that's really specific. That's really clear. I know what to do with that. Or there was a drummer that was drumming off kilter, and that was making the energy really hard for me to get into. That's really specific. That I can work with. That's something that I can work with. Or, there was somebody texting, during the ritual, and that was really distracting me. Those are all really specific things that you can with feedback. So, when I'm working with newer facilitators and they're not confident, I tend to not give them really intense, nuancy feedback because it'll overload them, um, which is not my intention. That's not what I want to do. What I will usually do, usually the feedback is they aren't loud enough. That's usually pretty clear, and that's one that almost every facilitator is going to run into, and that's one that I can really easily address. Is hey, we need to work on your projection. You need to be able to be louder. So let's go ahead and work on that, and I can let them know honestly. It's cool. Everybody runs into that, and I'm giving feedback in this tone of voice. It's very, I'm not all, your body language needs to be relaxed. You want to be able to speak in a relaxed way, that confident, relaxed way that's not, that, that they feel like, you're not scolding them. You want to make it, just let them know, like, that's the thing that happens. It's cool. We can work through it. There are other times where ritual feedback is a lot harder. And sometimes that feedback is, I'm trying to think of an example. Like there are more advanced techniques in ritual, like leading trance journeys and meditations that yes, anybody can do it, but to do it really well, it's a very specialized skill set and it takes a lot of learning. And you need a good voice for it. And I remember one time I was working with a ritualist who I don't know any other way to put it, but this person had a really annoying voice. Like it was just like a nails on a chalkboard kind of a voice. And you need to have this rhythmic kind of a soothing voice to be able to do meditation. And, I didn't know what else to tell this person other than I ended up not being the one in the position to give this feedback to this person, but that was, it's like, what am I going to do with this? This person just doesn't have a good voice for that. So sometimes, feedback like that is a little bit harder. I'm trying to think of any other examples, but it's being as specific as you can really helps. It's like when someone tells me, oh, that person's really creepy. What does creepy mean? And if you unpack it, creepy might mean they lean in too close when they're talking to you. It could be, there was one guy in my group in Chicago who was always looking at women's cleavage instead of at their faces, right? Hitting on people really quickly after meeting them, so there's a number of different specific concrete things this person was doing that were creepy, but just telling somebody, hey, you're creepy, what can they do with that? So that's with ritual, because ritual is so magical and because ritual takes us into that trance state, it can be really hard to pin it down to a physical thing. But the more you can pin it down to a very physical thing, like, if somebody is saying, can you all take a breath and relax? And they're all tense, their body's tense, their voice sounds tense, that's feedback I can give somebody. I can say, so you had the language, you knew to ask everybody to relax and take a breath. The challenge is that you need to relax and take that breath. And so you have to sculpt your body language to, you have your shoulders in the, not hunched up. You need your body language to be relaxed, and your voice needs to not be tense. You need your voice to be relaxed if you're going to use that technique successfully. That's a really concrete piece of feedback that I can offer. I can't think of any other specific examples like that, but that's how I, if I'm working with folks with feedback, I try and get really, really specific with what they're doing. So, which can include after ritual taking notes to make sure that you remember what people did. So, working with new facilitators is like, it's 50% building their confidence and 50% training them in the techniques and helping them skill build by offering feedback. So you want to balance how much feedback you give them so that they're not overloaded, but you don't want to not give them feedback. Like if somebody says, hey, did I do a good job? You don't want to say, oh yeah, you did fine, when they didn't, because that's not a service to them. But you also don't want to say, yeah, this was your first time doing a trance journey, and you rushed through it, and your voice was too high pitched because you were tense, and really it didn't achieve your objective. You don't want to crush them, because everybody starts somewhere. So it's finding the nuances of what you can offer them to give them a stepping stone, and then another stepping stone, um, to learn more. So did you have any other specific examples, or did that kind of cover what you were looking for?
I think that covered what I was looking for. I'm really, really happy to hear your views about the feedback and being specific as possible, because there are times where things aren't right in the ritual, but no one's going to say anything. So yeah. And sometimes the feedback can be, when you're working with fire, you may not want to have really long sleeves.
Yeah, that one's important. The only time I have ever set myself on fire in ritual, only once have I set myself on fire. I had on a silk scarf. Well, it was an organza silk, so it was interwoven with metal, but it's metal and silk, and then the fringe was all silk. Now, having described earlier how many candles I frequently use in ritual, and as my friend and sometimes co-facilitator Steve says, my house words are, "We need more candles." For this particular ritual, I only had 4 votive candles, only 4 little tea lights, and I had only lit one of them, and I was in the process of lighting the second one, and the fringe caught um, on my scarf, and fortunately, Reptile Brain helped me out on this one, because I basically my brain had gone into bullet points. So I saw the fire and I went, altar on fire, no. Shauna on fire, yes. And before I had processed, can Shauna put fire out? My spinal cord had decided that my right hand was going to go reach down, grab the scarf, and flick it, and it put it out. So I was, well, thanks, Reptile Brain. Thanks for that. Nobody even noticed in the ritual that I had set myself on fire. Um, Given some of the elaborate ritual costumes I used to wear early on when I started doing rituals, it's kind of a miracle that I hadn't ever set myself on fire. But yes, those are very, very specific feedback things that you can offer. And what I would say is also crucial in the feedback process is having the agreement for feedback. Having that transparent agreement with consent for feedback. I'm also going to be working on an article soon on unasked for advice, which is a problem culturally. Um, and that's a whole separate thing. But it's, if I attend somebody else's ritual and they have taken the time to put that ritual on, and they don't use a facilitation style that I resonate with, or they aren't really good at public speaking and they're making some public speaking mistakes, just because I'm observing those things is not an invitation for me to go and tell that person after their ritual, blah, 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 facilitation, blah, 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 feedback. It's not an open invitation for that. If they're interested in that feedback, I'm more than happy to give it to them in a compassionate way. And just as a general thing, I mean, if anyone is doing a ritual and you want me, and I'm at a festival that you're at and you're leading a ritual and you would like some feedback on your ritual, I'm more than happy to attend your ritual and watch you do stuff and offer you some specific concrete feedback after. But if I don't have that relationship with somebody, I'm not going to offer that feedback. So on the other hand, if I'm working with a team of people, and I'm teaching them ritual tools, and they're working with me and they're on my team, I'm going to have that agreement. Like if you're taking ritual roles and working with me, that's great. I'm going to be offering you feedback on those, on what you do. And if you're not comfortable receiving that feedback, then this isn't the work for you. And so I just, I try and be really clear about that. And, because I know some people get really, really defensive about stuff like this. And and having been through learning public speaking when I was very shy, I know nobody ever believes me when I say I was the shy little wallflower and incredibly socially awkward and had a hard time, but there was a time where I was absolutely petrified about speaking in front of a group. And, actually, my garden gnomes moment was when I was taking one of my first ritual speaking roles, and there were a number of us doing that particular piece of ritual, but this was, I had a very specific thing I was supposed to say. And so I'm out in the center of the group, and there's, the people in the ritual are watching, and my mentors are along in the back. So I'm doing my ritual piece, and I'm turning around the circle. So is a technique you turn to face everybody in the circle slowly, so that you're not just talking to one part of the group. And as I'm turning and I'm speaking this thing, and I'm trying to remember the thing I was supposed to say, like three of my mentors right in a row all do this. They can't hear me. So they all, they're, some of them are doing more subtle and they're tugging their ear. No, that's it. It is a subtle way you can give somebody feedback if they're on your team. The problem is I was so petrified of public speaking that I lost it. I completely lost what I was supposed to say. I choked up. I didn't say the thing I was supposed to say. Fortunately, this is why team-led rituals are great, because other people stepped in and did the thing, and it was fine. Nobody died. The earth did not open up and swallow me up. The gods did not strike me dead. It was fine. But anxiety, adrenaline, I just screwed up. I just, bad. I was not in a good way after that. So, I totally resonate with folks that are very tentative about public speaking, and are afraid to receive feedback because they're afraid it's going to confirm all their fears that they're horrible at this and they're never going to be good at it. I get that, and I try and be really compassionate with those folks. The folks it's usually a little harder with are the folks that already think they're really great at public speaking. And like one of the pieces of feedback that I sometimes offer, like in the particular ritual style that I do, speaking in a more genuine tone of voice, like what's actually connecting you to the divine, tends to work better than and now we will summon light from the heavens, the really big bombastic kind of stuff. And there's a place for that. There really is. There's a place for the big dramatic thing. There is. But when people are doing their entire ritual in big dramatic voice, it's not connective for the group. So that's a really clear piece of feedback that I can offer somebody. And they are, they probably took an acting class and learned to do this particular technique to draw focus and draw attention. And that's, that's cool. And they know that technique, and that's great because there's a place for it. And it's really great to have people in your ritual who are willing to do that, because not everybody is. But you also don't want your whole ritual. It'd be like reading a book where every sentence had an exclamation point for the punctuation. Or you're reading everything in all caps. You don't get that energetic punch from the one time it's used, because the whole ritual is done like that. So those are really clear, concrete feedback things that you can offer to people. So one of the things is just you have to notice. You have to be able to notice those things. But yet you have to have that clear agreement for feedback ahead of time. And when you have people's buy-in on that, when you have people's consent, when you have people willing for that feedback, to hear that feedback, it makes the feedback offering process a lot easier. Because if they weren't expecting that feedback, if they didn't agree to it, then they feel like they're being attacked. So that, having that explicit contract is really, really, really useful.
If you have any questions about ritual facilitation or leadership for pagan groups, please feel free to contact me. I love questions, and I love writing articles or recording videos for actual issues that people are facing in the community. If this webinar is useful for you, please consider donating. It is my goal to make this education available for all, but to do that I have to pay the bills. I also have several books available, and there are links below under Show More, or you can contact me via my website or social media.